Good afternoon and welcome everyone to the Board of Supervisors meeting of September 8th, 2015, the first meeting of our fall legislative session. Welcome back, members. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Thank you, Madam President. Supervisor Avalos? Avalos present. President Breed?
Here.
Breed present. Supervisor Campos?
Present.
Campos present. Supervisor Christensen?
Here.
Christensen present. Supervisor Cohen? Cohen present. Supervisor Farrell? Farrell present. Supervisor Kim? Supervisor Kim? Kim present. Supervisor Marr? Marr not present. Supervisor Tang?
Present.
Tang present. Supervisor Wiener?
Present.
Wiener present. Supervisor Yee?
Present.
Yee present. Madam President, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, can you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Are there any communications?
Yes, Madam President. This communication is meant to inform the public that the Board of Supervisors has expanded its existing Language Access Services program by authorizing the Office of the Clerk of the Board to enter into an important partnership with the Office of Civic Engagement and Immigrant Affairs, or OSIA, for an 11-month pilot program beginning September 1st, 2015 and lasting through July 31st, 2016. During that time, OSIA staff will provide Spanish and Chinese interpretation services upon request at every regular and special Board of Supervisors meeting. They are here in the chamber today. Interpreting for Spanish is Miss Agnes Lee, and interpreting for Chinese is Miss Agnes Lee, and interpreting for Spanish is Mr. Norman Ospina and Jesus Castro. Filipino interpretation will be provided with a suggested 48-hour advance request, as well as interpretation for committee meetings. OSIA will translate certain public notices crafted by our clerks and the legislation introduced document, in addition, which lists the titles of legislation introduced at roll call each week by the Board of Supervisors, the mayor, and the city departments. Further, these translated notices and legislation introduced will be posted on the Board of Supervisors website. I wish to thank the Director of OSIA, Adrienne Pon, and her great staff, Sarah and Sandra, in addition to the board staff who implemented a lot of good work in a very short period of time. Our Deputy of Operations, Peggy Nevin, and her very helpful staff, our Legislative Deputy, Rick Caldera, his assistant and legislative clerks, and the ever-creative Mr. John C. from the board's IT division. Thank you, President Breed, and to the members.
Thank you, and I'd like to add a special thank you to Supervisor Yee for bringing this legislation forward and making this happen. With that, colleagues, are there any changes to the July 7th, the July 14th, the July 21st, or the July 28th regular board meeting minutes, or the July 31st special meeting minutes? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve? Motioned by Supervisor Marr, seconded by Supervisor Tang. Colleagues, can we take the approval of these minutes without objection? Without objection, these minutes will be approved after public comment. Madam Clerk, can you please read the consent agenda?
Item 1 through 3 comprise the consent calendar. These items are considered routine. If a member objects, an item may be removed and considered separately.
Okay. Seeing no names on the roster, Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
On items 1 through 3, Supervisor Christensen.
Aye.
Christensen, aye. Supervisor Cohen. Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell. Farrell, aye. Supervisor Kim. Kim, aye. Supervisor Marr. Marr, aye. Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Wiener.
Aye.
Wiener, aye. Supervisor Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Avalos. Avalos, aye. Supervisor Breed.
Aye.
Breed, aye. Supervisor Campos.
Aye.
Campos, aye. There are 11 ayes.
Okay, these items are finally passed and approved unanimously. Madam Clerk, can you please call the next item?
Item 4 is an ordinance to amend the building code to revise the fee schedules and affirm the planning department's CEQA determination.
Colleagues, can we take this item? Same house, same call. Without objection, this ordinance is finally passed unanimously. Madam Clerk, can you read items 5 and 6 together?
Items 5 and 6 are two ordinances that amend the planning code to allow the construction of accessory dwelling units, also known as secondary or in-law units, within the boundaries of Board of Supervisors District 8 and District 3, to require the Planning Department to monitor the use of ADUs in both districts as short-term rentals, and correcting section references by amending the administrative code, affirming the Planning Department's CEQA determination, and making other appropriate findings.
Colleagues, can we take these items, same house, same call? Without objection, these ordinances are finally passed unanimously. Next item, please.
Item 7 is an ordinance to amend the planning code to clarify that the inclusionary affordable housing program applies to housing projects, to include group housing projects, to change certain requirements for group housing projects, to allow a zoning administrator partial waiver from the exposure requirements in certain circumstances, to allow affordable on-site units in group housing projects to be exempt from density calculations, specifying that the on-site units in group housing projects should be priced as 75% of the maximum purchase price for studio units if the bedrooms are less than 350 square feet, to clarify the requirements for designated units in certain C3 districts under Section 124F, and to affirm the Planning Department's CEQA determination and making other appropriate findings.
Supervisor Avalos.
Thank you, President Reed. Colleagues, we actually had two readings on this legislation. We had passed it, but due to a clerical error, we didn't actually have the real amendments before us at the time. And so we're actually going to start at first reading today with new amendments that I have here today that actually fit the intent that we had with the amendments that we had made in committee and thought we had approved at the full board. So these are here. They've been passed out to you by the clerk. Mr. Givner, do you have anything to add about the process for this legislation?
Deputy City Attorney John Givner, no, just to, on today's proposed amendments, just add back in some existing code text that we accidentally deleted in committee. So this will just, the amendments proposed today will not be substantive at all, just cleaning up the ordinance.
Okay, and then this will be our first reading, and so we'll pass it out of next board meeting with our second reading.
That's right.
Okay.
And the 1 week delay, or even the hitch that required another reading today, won't impact any projects in the real world because the ordinance is retroactive and applies to projects that got first construction document in May.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Supervisor Avalos, you'd like to make a motion to
accept the amendment of the whole for this legislation to clarify that our inclusionary housing program applies to group housing.
Supervisor Avalos has made a motion, seconded by Supervisor Cohen. Colleagues, can we take the amendment without objection? Without objection, the amendment passes. And colleagues, for the item as amended, can we take this same house, same call? Without objection, this ordinance is passed unanimously on the first reading. Madam Clerk, can you please read item number 8?
Item 8 is an ordinance to amend the Public Works Code to require a contractor parking plan as a condition for approval of excavation permits for major work that is 30 consecutive calendar days or longer, and specify temporary street space occupancy permits for construction work, adopting fees for review and inspection related to contractor parking plans, and to affirm the Planning Department CEQA determination.
Supervisor Cohen.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the chamber. It's nice to see everyone back and bright-eyed and ready to go. Today on item number 8, I just want to take a moment to thank Supervisor Christensen as well as Supervisor Farrell for working collaboratively with me on this piece of legislation, as well as with MTA and DPW for working with our office to refine and develop the necessary application forms for contractors. Last year, you may recall, all three of us heard from many of our constituents who were frustrated with the confusing and often overburdensome parking regulations springing up all around various construction sites in different neighborhoods. And in some instances, entire blocks of parking were reserved for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even when construction work wasn't occurring. Now, this left the entire portions of the neighborhood off limits to residents who need to park overnight or individuals looking to patronize neighborhood commercial corridors. Well, much of San Francisco's growth, as you know, is happening in the southeast, and many of the residents and the businesses are starting to feel, are continuing to feel this pinch. We all need to share this San Francisco's limited parking resources. So I am an enthusiastic supporter because I think this legislation strikes the right balance, facilitating construction, but also requiring contractors to be a little bit more thoughtful in and specific about what exactly their parking needs are going to be. So this legislation also increases transparency for the neighbors. So by requiring the development of a contractor parking plan for these larger projects, the neighbors can hold contractors accountable and can also do a better job and the contractors can do a better job of planning for parking loss. So, colleagues, I would like to ask for your support on this legislation. I believe my colleague Supervisor Mark Farrell also has wonderful comments to share.
Thank you, Supervisor Cohen. Supervisor Farrell.
Thanks, President Breed. So, colleagues, and thanks to Supervisor Cohen for co-sponsorship on this. Obviously, not a surprise, our construction industry is booming in our city and having a significant impact on the quality of life for all of our residents. I have heard complaints for years now from residents every day frustrated by the amount of neighborhood parking spaces that are being taken away by construction parking permits. And this especially mounts, I think we can all relate to it, when parking spaces remain vacant for days at a time and are not used. With over 250 permits obtained per week and close to 13,000 issued on a yearly basis in the city, I do believe we can be more proactive in letting our residents know about the impacts that are going to be happening to them in their neighborhoods. Given these frustrations, I teamed up with Supervisor Cohen and joined by our co-sponsors, Supervisor Christensen, Wiener, Breed, and I want to thank Supervisor Kim as well, who I understand co-sponsor in committee, to introduce this construction parking plan legislation a few months ago. This plan will mandate a construction parking permit plan as a condition to receiving any temporary street space occupancy permit for construction work that requests more than one parking space over the course of 3 or more months. It also mandates that permitted on-street parking spaces that are not used or occupied by 4 p.m. on any given day shall go back to our residents and the public for use. This plan will be made proactively available to members of the public and be available on DPW's website. The ordinance makes submitting the construction parking plan a prerequisite to receiving these parking space permits for construction zones. The components of the construction parking plan will include, among others, the number of parking spaces and the rationale, the average number of employees anticipated on site each day, the timeline and phasing of the project, and a requirement of an update from the contractor at the midpoint of the construction project, whether it's feasible to use off-site parking, such as parking garages, and a proposal for how the contractor is going to implement the 4 p.m. parking plan. In committee, we also added additional zoning districts to mitigate the impacts felt in PDR and neighborhood commercial districts for residents and small businesses, and lastly included fees to ensure that this legislation can be properly enforced out in our neighborhoods. I do believe this is simple and straightforward and will alleviate a significant quality of life issue that exists in our neighborhoods today. And colleagues, I also ask for your support.
Thank you, Supervisor Farrow. Colleagues, can we take this item, same house, same call? Without objection, the ordinance passes unanimously on the first reading. Madam Clerk, can you read the next item, please?
Item 9 is an ordinance to amend the planning code to allow accessory use entertainment with limited live performance permits in the western south of Market mixed-use general and regional commercial districts, and to affirm the planning department's CEQA determination and make the appropriate findings.
Supervisor Kim.
Thank you, President Breed. This legislation would expand the limited live permit usage into the neighborhood commercial corridors as allowed in the rest of the city. As colleagues may remember, we did delay the implementation of limited live permits in the Western Soma plan as the plan came forward at the same time that this program did. And many of the members of the task force had asked us to delay implementation until we see how this played out in other neighborhoods. The limited live permit program has been fairly successful throughout the city with very, very few neighborhood and resident complaints. And so given the large number of entertainment use that was already in the South of Market, there were some concerns about allowing for more limited live permits. Being that it's been successful in allowing small-scale DJs, singer-songwriters, and open mics throughout the city, the neighborhood is comfortable with expanding this now into the Western Soma plan. And so, colleagues, I ask for your support and want to recognize and thank the Entertainment Commission and many of our small businesses for their work and participation in this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Kim. Colleagues, can we take this item, same house, same call? Without objection, this ordinance passes unanimously on the first reading. Madam Clerk, can you please call item number 10?
Item 10 is an ordinance to amend the administrative code to require the sheriff and police departments to gather and regularly report data regarding detentions and traffic stops.
Colleagues, can we take this item, same house, same call? Without objection, this ordinance passes unanimously on the first reading. Item number 11, please.
Item 11 is an ordinance to amend the administrative code to increase the amount of the assessor recorder's cash revolving fund from $300 to $650.
Same house, same call. Without objection, this ordinance is passed unanimously on the first reading. Item 12, please.
Item 12 is a motion to appoint Eddie Zhao Fei Zhang to the Children, Youth, and their Families Oversight and Advisory Committee, term to be determined, and to waive the residency requirement.
Same house, same call. Without objection, this motion is approved unanimously. Supervisor Cohen.
Excuse me, Madam President. I'd like to make a motion to rescind the vote for item number 10. There are amendments that need to be discussed.
Supervisor Cohen has made a motion to rescind the vote on item 10, seconded by Supervisor Christensen. Colleagues, can we take this without objection? Without objection, the vote for item number 10 has been rescinded. Madam Clerk, since you've called item number 10 already, I will recognize Supervisor Cohen at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. My apologies, supervisors. Today I've come for a couple things. I'm going to ask for your support on the Transparent Policing Ordinance, which is an ordinance that will be beneficial to all of San Franciscans, but especially to those in the minority communities, as well as those communities, as well as to both the Sheriff's Department as well as the Police Department. Just briefly to orient you, the ordinance is reflective of the movement that we've seen across the entire country over the last year. It reflects recommendations from President Obama's 21st Century Policing Task Force, which produced a report with a number of improvements that cities should make to improve police relations with the community. This ordinance would require both the sheriffs as well as the police department to collect data on race, gender, and to be collected during traffic stops, and anytime either department, either the police department or the sheriff's department, detains, stops for questioning or searches an individual. Now, this ordinance requires each respective department not only to collect this information, but also to analyze and report it on a quarterly basis back to the Board of Supervisors, to the Mayor's Office, and as well as the Human Rights Commission, and also to the Police Commission. The three areas of concern that this ordinance is focused on are the prevention of pretextual stops based on race and pretextual stops based on gender-related characteristics, and also the use of force where it's unwarranted. Now, over the last year or so, we have all seen a number of horrific events where police officers have either killed or seriously injured young, mostly African American or other minority men. And right here in San Francisco, African American men are arrested at a rate more than 2 times than Caucasian residents. And studies have also showed that transgendered people across the U.S. experience unprecedented levels of police violence at higher rates than non-transgendered individuals. So there was a study that was released in 2015 by the National Coalition of Anti-Violence Programs that shows that transgendered women experience police brutality at a rate of 5.8 times greater than non-trans individuals. And for trans women of color, that number is 6.2 times higher. So, colleagues, in passing this ordinance, the goals that we have outlined and that we're trying to achieve is to reduce unintentional and disproportionate numbers of detentions, arrests, and targeting of minorities of the transgendered community. Also, we'd like to introduce an additional level of transparency and oversight onto the police department as well as the sheriff's department, and to begin to rebuild the trust that the community has lost in our law enforcement departments by making this information available to the public for review, and by requiring quarterly reports to the Mayor's Office, to this body, as well as to the Police Commission and the Human Rights Commission. So, colleagues, you should have received from the clerk the latest version of the ordinance with a couple of amendments that I've made to strengthen the legislation in response to community concerns and working with the advocacy groups in the transgender community, as they have felt that requiring officers to request an individual's gender identity during an encounter would place transgendered individuals in an increased risk of, for discrimination, harassment, or worse, violence. So there are several amendments. I'm going to read them into the record. The first has to do with a incremental implementation period. So on page 3, line 16, we've changed the collection of data to be based on an individual's actual race and not the perception or observation. And I want to thank Supervisor Avalos and Supervisor Tang for this attention to this matter in committee over a month ago. The second amendment is on page 7, line 4. It's changed reporting for transgender community to reflecting complaints filed with the Office of Citizens Complaints based on biased policing from its self-identified transgendered individuals. The third amendment, and it's one additional last-minute amendment that I'm making, is on page 3, line 19. I'd like to strike the phrase that says, quote, "The officer has a lawful reason to identify such passengers," end quote. It should read, quote, "If the officer has a reasonable suspicion to detain such passengers," end quote. The final amendment can be found on page 5, line 1, June 30th, 2016, and then on line 2 should read June 2017 to be in line with the end of the fiscal year. So it's just some cleanup legislation, some cleanup language.
So you're proposing those specific amendments to be passed today?
That's correct.
Okay, is that a motion?
No, not yet, because I'm not done.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm almost done, though. I also there was also a recommendation that came in from the Public Defender's Office to include investigative context in the reporting requirement. Now, while I appreciate and actually have worked very closely with the PD on the Public Defender's Office on the crafting of this ordinance, I have not accepted this legislation. It goes beyond the focus of the ordinance and really beyond the scope of what the 21st Century Policing Report recommend. So this ordinance is focused on stops and detentions. So there are a long list of folks that I'd like to thank. I'm proud to have worked with a wide range of community and city advocates on this particular ordinance, and I'd like to thank very quickly the Officers for Justice, the Transgendered Law Center, QUAV, which is the Community United Against Violence, the Human Rights Commission, the Office of Citizens Complaints, the Youth Commission, and of course the Sheriff and the Police Department. Both of these departments have been instrumental, as has the Public Defender's Office. Colleagues, I hope to have your support as this item moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Cohen. So is there a motion to move these amendments forward?
Yes, there is a motion to move the amendments that I read into the record forward.
Okay, seconded by Supervisor Kim. Colleagues, can we take these amendments without...
One more thing I forgot. I want to recognize my co-sponsor, President Breed, and Supervisor Yee and Supervisor Kim, and Supervisor Avalos.
Thank you.
Okay.
Colleagues, can we take these amendments without objection? Without objection, the amendments pass. Supervisor Kim.
Thank you. As long as we're talking about amendments, I actually just did have a question about something that was in the board packet. It's not necessarily something that I want to include in the ordinance today, but I did notice that the Public Defender's Office had suggested that we include reporting on investigative contacts as well. And I was curious about that conversation and why it was ultimately not included in the legislation.
Sure, it was just a little bit out of scope of what I'm trying to do, the basis of my legislation is based on the 21st Century report that President Obama's put out, and just didn't include investigative points.
Okay, and I was curious if in the hearing it came up that this was an issue where there was disparities that were perceived in communities around these types of contacts by the police.
Around investigative contacts, no,
okay.
Not at all.
Thank you. I do want to say that I do support this legislation. I want to recognize Supervisor Cohen for her work and leadership on this. I think that is incredibly important that we gather and regularly report data so that there is transparency with the public around how our police and our sheriff's department have contact with members of the public, particularly around detention and traffic stops. And I really look forward to the reports coming forward in May of next year. I hope that they are illuminative, but that also that we can learn from that as we improve our relationship and in building trust with members of the public. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Supervisor Kim. Supervisor Campos.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to thank Supervisor Cohen for this item, and I'd like to be added on as a co-sponsor, and I'm very supportive of what we're trying to do with this item. I think that we need to have data to have more transparency, but I do want to say that putting what's happening around law enforcement in context, I think that this is a step in the right direction, but a lot more needs to be done, not only with the police department, but also the sheriff's department. One of the things that we're still waiting to figure out how they're going to do this is the implementation of the body camera program. I think that the fact that, it's been a while since this was first announced and we still haven't seen, full implementation, I think that's a concern. The other thing that I would say is that I think that it's more than just data that we need. I think that there is actually a need for comprehensive reform of our law enforcement agencies, including reform around training, hiring, and quite frankly, the disciplinary proceedings as well. We have a situation where some of the individuals that were involved in the text messaging scandals, depending on what happens with the court, those cases may end up being thrown out of the court system. And I think that's a pretty horrible thing to happen, not only in terms of those cases, but also the kind of message that it sends. The reality is that what's happening in places like Ferguson, while it's not to the same degree a problem in San Francisco, it's still a problem in San Francisco. And I don't believe that we as a city collectively are doing enough to address the reform that is needed. And I think that because of that inability to fully tackle this issue, we have a situation where in many communities, especially communities of color, there is a lack of trust of law enforcement, not just of the police department, but also the sheriff's department. And so I think that it's an important step in the right direction, but this is a very small step in the larger context of what needs to be done to reform our law enforcement agencies. And if we cannot do that the right way in San Francisco, where else in this country can that happen?
Thank you, Supervisor Campos. Supervisor Marr.
Thank you, President Breed. I just wanted to thank Supervisor Cohen and Officers for Justice, Supervisor Avalos, and the other co-sponsors. I think as we heard the issue within the Public Safety Committee that Supervisor Campos and Christensen sit on with me, that I'm in total agreement with Supervisor Campos that it's a systemic issue that Black Lives Matter and different social movements have brought up recently, but also historically. James Bell and the Hayward Burns Institute have identified kind of key racial disparities. I think they recently alerted us that African American adults are 7 times more likely as white adults to be arrested in San Francisco. And from the Public Defender's Racial Justice Committee, where a lot of great suggestions came out of a 10-point program, that we need to go even further. But I think this is a good first step as we try to look at the police department and the sheriff's department as well. I wanted to also acknowledge years and decades of the ACLU of Northern California and the ACLU's Driving While Black campaigns to raise awareness of the inherent bias in a lot of other areas as well. And lastly, I just wanted to say that I think it's good that you're raising the issues of transgendered people and gender in traffic stops and various stops as well, because I think it's beyond race is important, but also gender and other factors as well, and culture. But thanks so much to Supervisor Cohen, but also all the other groups that have worked on this. But as Supervisor Campos mentioned, there's so much more to be done as the problem is extremely systemic, and we have to address it on that basis as well. But thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Marr. Seeing no other names on the roster, colleagues, can we take this item, same house, same call, as amended? Seeing no objection, this ordinance is passed unanimously as amended on the first reading.
Thank you.
Okay, Madam Clerk, can we go to committee reports?
Madam President, items 13 and 14 were considered by the Government Audit and Oversight Committee at a regular meeting on Thursday, September 3rd at 10:30 a.m. and were forwarded as committee reports. Both items were recommended as amended with the same title. May I call both items together?
Yes, please. Item 13 and item 14.
Items 13 and 14 are two resolutions that respond to the presiding judge of the Superior Court on the findings and recommendations contained in the 2014 through 2015 civil grand jury reports on the Office of the Assessor Recorder and the San Francisco Whistleblowers Protection Ordinance, and to further urge the mayor to cause the implementation of the accepted findings and recommendations through his department heads and or through the development of the annual budget.
Okay, seeing no names on the roster, colleagues, can we take these items, same house, same call? Without objection, these resolutions are adopted unanimously. Okay, Madam Clerk, for now we're going to go to roll call for introductions and then we'll come back to the commendation.
Thank you, Madam President. Supervisor Cohen, we are going to start with you today.
Thank you. I submit.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor Cohen. Supervisor Farrell. Supervisor Kim.
Thank you. I am actually doing follow-up legislation for an ordinance which this board passed unanimously last February, the Fair Chance Act, which was co-sponsored by Supervisor Malia Cohen. With the hard work of a diverse set of stakeholders from the civil rights community to the housing community and, of course, our business community, we were able to craft the most progressive ban-the-box reform in the state, and we are again leading the country in our work to remove unnecessary barriers and create real employment and housing opportunities for 1 in 4 adults in the U.S. who have an arrest or conviction history. Fair Chance has now been in effect over the last year, since August 2014, and we have received recommendations from several city departments, including the Office of Labor Standards Enforcement, the agency charged with enforcing the legislation, regarding a need to ensure that the city and county of San Francisco also removes arbitrary roadblocks to full participation in city government. To that end, I'm introducing an amendment to the Fair Chance Act that will eliminate the requirement that applicants for membership on boards and commissions here at the city disclose all felony convictions, and limit the city from using criminal history information on making decisions about appointment and removals of members of certain boards, commissions, and other bodies, and require the city to follow Fair Chance when inquiring about or using conviction history information to make decisions about appointments and removals. With these amendments, the Fair Chance Act ensures that decision makers can still obtain all the relevant information that they need to make fully informed decisions, while at the same time ensure that individuals with conviction histories who are seeking to fully reintegrate and engage in civic life have a real chance to put their qualifications forward first. With the ban-the-box reform, we can reduce racial disparities in our criminal justice system, improve the community well-being, and reduce the cost of criminal justice, saving taxpayer dollars. These policies, embodied by Fair Chance, will help open the doors of opportunity for all of us, including opportunities of leadership and civic participation within city government, which will help make our city safer, healthier, and stronger. And with that, colleagues, I will be asking for your support as this legislation moves through the process. And the rest I submit.
Thank you, Supervisor Kim. Supervisor Marr.
Colleagues, I just wanted to invite you to an important town hall this coming Thursday evening, September 10th, from 6 to 7:30 p.m. in the Richmond District at Marla Bakery on Balboa and 36th Avenue. My office has been working with the San Francisco Chamber of Commerce to really help support our small businesses and the vitality of our merchant corridors. The event brings together small business leaders together with my office and other city officials to discuss our local small business concerns. And the Neighborhood Business Summit's an excellent opportunity to meet elected officials and the city departments and the Chamber of Commerce as well, and to network with other merchants in the district. It also helps us strengthen the vitality of our merchant corridors. Please join us. If you have any questions, contact my aide, Nick Pagalatos, and Alex Mitra from the Chamber of Commerce. Also, one of our stellar vital anchor organizations in the Richmond District is our Richmond District Neighborhood Center. And I just wanted to acknowledge from news that I've heard from the board chairman, Jonathan Lyons, who's been a tremendous civil rights advocate in our city. He's announced that there's a new director of the Richmond District Neighborhood Center, Michelle Cusano, who's led the Beacon Center for years. And I think it's a really great step forward for the Richmond District Neighborhood Center. Please join us also on Thursday evening from 6 to 9 in that outer Balboa area at La Promenade Cafe, formerly Zephyr Cafe, on Balboa and 37th Avenue. The evening is going to celebrate Wine on the West Side, and we're going to be raising funds for the food security network that I helped to start up with the Richmond District Neighborhood Center and our Richmond Senior Center. It's an important partnership that links up younger people to deliver groceries and meals to isolated seniors in our neighborhood. And the program is connecting neighborhood volunteers with mobility impaired seniors for friendship and weekly delivery and aging in place in our neighborhood. For more information, please contact Sarah Huck, who's the Neighborhood Services Director at the RDNC at 751-6600, or visit their website at rdnc.org. The rest I'll submit. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Marr. Supervisor Wiener.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and colleagues. Welcome back from recess. So I look forward to a terrific rest of the year and addressing the needs of our city. Today I'm introducing legislation to trigger over the course of the next year a subway master plan for San Francisco. While we have a lot of terrific transportation planning going on in our city and our region through the great work of the MTA and our Transportation Authority, our Planning Department, and so forth, we really need to have a sharp focus on the future of underground transit in San Francisco. Our city is growing by leaps and bounds by about 10,000 people a year. The city is more crowded than ever, and we see it nowhere more than on our streets, where we have congestion that just seems to get worse and worse. It impacts every mode of transportation, and particularly our transit system. Muni is, on average, the slowest major transit system in the country at just over 8 miles an hour, and our buses and light rail vehicles are getting caught in the same traffic that everyone else is getting caught on. And it impacts our economy, our quality of life, and we need to make our transit system more efficient. So in addition to doing what we can to improve the efficiency and accessibility of our bus system and our above-ground light rail lines, we need to be planning aggressively for the coming years and decades to have more subway lines in San Francisco. Right now, the last subway line that we opened in San Francisco was 35 years ago, when I was 10 years old, when the Market Street subway line was opened, which covers a small portion of the city. At around the same time, BART opened up its Market Street line and then going south to Daly City. And so these two subway lines have been incredibly well used, but they're not extensive enough. There's no subway service in the northern part of the city, in western San Francisco, in the southeastern part of the city. And it is not acceptable that it takes longer to get downtown from the Sunset or from the Bayview than from the East Bay. And we need to address that. We know that the Central Subway is on track to be done in a few years, and it will immediately be the highest ridership line of any of the light rail vehicle lines. And we need to make sure that the Central Subway is extended north to North Beach and Fisherman's Wharf. We need to look at opportunities to extend subways to other parts of the city, particularly the west side of town and southeastern San Francisco. We need to make sure that the downtown extension is built and the second Transbay Tube. There are so many things we can do to dramatically improve transit access in San Francisco and transit reliability. And so the legislation asks for a subway master plan over the course of the next year with periodic updates thereafter. Subways are expensive, they are time-consuming, they are challenging in many ways, but it would be a far greater cost not to be building subways in San Francisco in terms of the ability of our city to get around. So I look forward to the conversation on this important topic, and the rest I submit.
Thank you, Supervisor Wiener. Supervisor Yee.
Submit.
Supervisor Avalos.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Colleagues, I have 3 items for introduction. First is an introduction for an ordinance to create the Jewish Home Special Use District, which allows the expansion of this residential care facility in the Excelsior. The Jewish Home has been serving the Excelsior and the Greater Bay Area for over 100 years. It's a facility on the corner of Mission and Silver Avenue, a residential care facility mostly for senior citizens. And they have been doing really great work, really great service. There's medical care that's provided there as well. But under the recent years, the way they've been doing their business and taking care of people needs a real change in how they can actually be sustainable in years to come. And they have a whole plan about rearranging their facilities and their care model to make sure they can really meet the needs that are going to be coming forward and the financial needs of how organizations like this are funded in the years to come. The plan they've done with, they've over many years have put together their plan. They've had a lot of work with the community groups. Just last week, they were at the Planning Commission, which gave them unanimous vote of approval for their different projects. Part of it is creating this special use district, which I am happy to co-sponsor. And I'm really excited as well that in terms of their work with the community groups in the Excelsior, they're looking at traffic issues and also landscaping and public space along a part of the corridor that's been very difficult to make presentable. And they'll be a big part of that in the future years to come. So I want to thank them for their new plan, and hope you'll have your support, colleagues, when this comes before us later this year. I'm also submitting a resolution that would reaffirm a priority development area in the southern part of San Francisco along the Mission and Geneva corridor. Our PDAs, our priority development areas, are designated areas of our area of the Bay Area, in this case San Francisco, that allow us to receive funding from different sources, including the One Bay Area grants that support transit and also housing development, and there was an oversight that this priority development area was not included or was not actually formally created, and this will enable the planning department to submit an application for this PDA to be done, and it'll be an area of the San Francisco that is ripe for development, for denser housing, for transit-oriented development, and the sky's the limit about what we can do in this area, especially around the Balboa Park Station. There are areas that really could be developed for affordable housing and really meet our transit needs in this part of San Francisco and the Bay Area. Lastly, I have a hearing request, and I want to thank Supervisor Cohen for her co-sponsorship. The hearing request is on an update from the San Francisco Retirement Board's staff on their efforts around divestment from fossil fuel corporations. If you recall, colleagues, back in April of 2013, we passed unanimously a resolution urging the Retirement Board to divest from fossil fuel corporations, and that request really came at an understanding that already the corporations that have fossil fuel sites in their portfolios, coal that's in the ground, oil that's in the ground, crude oil in the ground, they have stockpiles of fossil fuel that's enough to actually heat the Earth's temperature well beyond the ability to hold life if we were to burn all that fuel. So it makes a lot of sense that we do not burn all the fossil fuels that are in the capacity for us to build, but instead think of alternatives to burning and looking at non-fossil fuel type of generation of power sources. So we passed that unanimously, but up to this time, the Retirement Board has been staff have been very slow moving forward on the program that we authorized them to do, and they've been almost working obstructively in helping to move this program forward. And I want to make sure that we can actually do what we had intended for the Retirement Board to do. In this hearing, we'll get an update from the staff about what they're doing. The rest I'll submit. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Avalos. Supervisor Campos will return to you after the President calls the 2:30 commendation period. Madam President.
Thank you very much. Today, colleagues, I have a very special commendation for an organization that has done tremendous work here in the city and county of San Francisco. At this time, I'd like to ask Dr. Joe Marshall to come up and accept this commendation on behalf of our full board for the Alive and Free program, but more specifically, On behalf of the Board of Supervisors, I want to acknowledge the Alive and Free Omega Boys Club on the occasion of graduating over 200 young people. 200 young people from college. This milestone is a realization of their mission to cultivate youth violence and to work with young people and cultivate a path towards a positive future for young people in our communities. And in 1987, after experiencing the loss of so many young people throughout the city, to the prison system, to drugs, to gangs, to death, sadly, Dr. Marshall and Jack got together and co-founded what was initially called the Omega Boys Club as a way to keep young people unharmed by violence and free from incarceration. The Youth Development and Violence Prevention Program that they put together as a part of Omega Boys Club is now called Alive and Free and has gained national and international acclaim for its pioneering work with young people. And I can attest to the great work of Alive and Free from personal experience as the former director of the African American Art and Culture Complex, when we had experienced significant challenges with our young people over time in the district. It was Dr. Marshall who stepped up with his team to consistently work with our young people, and we definitely saved some lives there. Alive and Free program defines violence as a social disease that transmits through the gems of bad behavior, poor examples, and limited instruction. And by identifying and addressing the systematic thinking that puts young people at risk in the first place, the Alive and Free program champions a belief that with positive lifestyle choices that will offset the disease of violence in our community and hopefully change lives. Alive and Free strives to change the beliefs, values, and attitudes that promote youth violence in the first place through a process that is designed to help young people succeed in life, attend college, and give back to their communities. Through its outreach programs, Alive and Free has challenged the cycle of violence and poverty that threatens our young people. Its syndicated weekly radio broadcast, Street Soldiers, which recently celebrated its 20th anniversary on KMEL, is a solutions-driven oriented call-in show that focuses on issues that are affecting young people today, including issues around drugs, teen pregnancy, bullying, cyberbullying, dropout rates, etc. The school adoption program assists schools in transforming their classrooms into proactive, positive learning environments. And since 2000, the Alive and Free staff have trained over 1,000 teachers and staff at over 17 schools, which supports more than 15,000 students. The Alive and Free Academy serves over 200 young people ages 14 to 24 every single year, offering a safe learning environment to develop math, literacy, and life skills, as well as college preparation, scholarships preparation, and mentoring. This project has helped over 200 young people complete undergraduate degrees, and 60 of whom have received or are currently working on their graduate degrees. It is truly an amazing accomplishment, and I was there with Dr. Marshall on August 2nd when many of those graduates attended the event to celebrate this milestone. Just some people that came from all over, folks who are doing really well, and I think what was truly clear about the young folks that Dr. Marshall, which are now, some of them are older than I am, but that he's helped over the years, is that all of them talked about how their story, their challenges, the obstacles they overcame, but most important, how they want to make sure that they are doing everything they can to continue to give back to their community to provide the next young person the same opportunity that Dr. Marshall has provided them. And I just think that's a testament to his work in the community and how he has worked to really transform some lives. While the organization is headquartered in San Francisco, Alive and Free has expanded its presence in the Bay Area, across the nation, and the globe through the Alive and Free National Consortium, which is dedicated to using and promoting the same violence prevention model developed by Dr. Marshall and Jack with the Omega Boys Club over 28 years ago. Every young person within his or her self has the full potential of greatness. And Alive and Free has provided a blueprint for overcoming the obstacles many young people face in at-risk communities. And they have established a roadmap for change and an opportunity for which young people can reach enormous heights. It is clear that every single day you are touching someone's life, Dr. Marshall, and on behalf of the City and County of San Francisco, on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, we commend you and we celebrate you, this tremendous milestone of 200 lives, 200 college graduates. Thank you for your commitment and work to San Francisco. This is truly amazing.
Well, that was way more than I expected. First of all, thank you, President Breed. Thank you. And they say good news is no news. So anytime, good news just doesn't seem to make the papers. It doesn't make certainly the 11 o'clock news, especially with the population that I work with. So, to be able to receive this from you and the board is great. I can't say enough about it. I really accept it on behalf of all those young people. Let's be honest. I'm just trying to churn out more London Breeds and Malia Cohens. That's all I'm trying to do. Okay, and to do that, I got to get them past the hurdles of that they face every day. That I know both of you are very aware of, and. It's been great. My grandmother told me when I was 6 years old, the more you know, the more you owe. And those have been the words that I have lived by since then. And as I've grown in life, I've come to understand that someone paved the way for me. So I've been very happy to do that all of these years. I personally want to thank you for speaking at our event that day. Great. I know I took away a little bit of your Sunday, and that's a sacred day. But thank you. I want to thank Supervisor Cohen for showing up. She's spoken before, and Supervisor Winter, you were there also. Thank you very much. It's great, and we're just going to keep on going. These are young people you don't have to worry about. Everybody thinks my only job is the police commission, but really, that's my civic job, my civic duty. But my is to do something that the police won't have to worry about. So. We're going to begin our next campaign this year. Our new campaign tonight at the club. We want to continue to save as many lives as we can, and just thank you. What can I say? Thank you on behalf of the young people. And I want to thank my grandmother. Really, she conjured this up, and I'm just carrying out her dream. And everybody, stay alive and free. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Marshall.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, colleagues. Now, Madam Clerk, we will return to our regular business and go back to roll call for introductions. And Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Madam President. Supervisor Campos.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Again, congratulations to Commissioner Marshall and for the incredible work he does. I have a couple of items. To first, simply want to note that something very disturbing happened in my district over the weekend. We became aware yesterday of graffiti that was plastered in different parts of the Portola district that was essentially hate speech targeted against the Chinese American community in that neighborhood. And I want to just say that as the supervisor for this district, it is very disturbing, upsetting that something like this would happen in this day and age in San Francisco. But I also think that after out of something negative, something positive can come out. I'm grateful that this community has rallied, has come together to condemn this hateful speech and to send a very clear message that the kind of speech that targets this any one community in our city is simply not tolerated. There is a rally that the community is putting together for this Thursday at 6 p.m. And I think that that rally and the community coming together is more reflective of what the Portola is about, what San Francisco is about. The second item that I have is a hearing request on the very important issue of what's happening with short-term rentals here in San Francisco. Today, I'm calling for a hearing on a couple of items. First, how our San Francisco Treasurer's Office and how our new Office of Short-Term Rentals are handling tax collection as well as the enforcement of the law that went into effect a few months back. It has been now more than 8 months since what I believe, and many believe is a flawed Airbnb law was implemented, or actually has failed to be properly implemented. In the last few months, we have seen that only 600 people have registered with the city, and this is out of more than 8,000 short-term listings that the city has. More than 5,000 of those listings come from one company alone, Airbnb. Throughout this whole time, Airbnb, after paying their taxes 3 years late, has been asserting that it has paid its back taxes and that it supposedly remits $1 million a month to San Francisco in taxes. Yet, as far as I know, no one has independently verified that information. At the same time, as the independent budget legislative analyst has found, this one company alone is facilitating the loss of at least 1,000 units of housing in San Francisco. Up to 23% of units that could be rented are being Airbnb'd. According to our chief economist, losing even one unit of housing to a short-term rental costs the city more than $250,000 and eliminates any positive economic impact of the tourist rental. And yet we're talking about as much as 1,000 units being lost to one company alone. Given this context, I would like the Treasurer's Office to clarify how much Airbnb and other platforms have actually paid in back and current taxes. I also would like to understand the Treasurer's policies when it comes to collecting taxes for what is essentially illegal activity. Moreover, how does the Treasurer's Office deal with companies such as VRBO, which do not remit taxes on behalf of their hosts? The second point is that I want to understand how the newly formed Office of Short-Term Rental Administration and Enforcement, which has presented by the mayor and others as the panacea or the agency that was needed to make things better, how is that actually doing? What exactly is that agency doing to enforce the law? Without data from the hosting platforms or without fines for those platforms that list illegal listings, how does this agency actually plan to go after the thousands of unregistered units in the city? What is this agency's enforcement plan? I also want to know how the Treasurer's Office and the Office of Short-Term Rental are working together. We know that the Treasurer is a partner in any kind of enforcement that the city has. But we also know that there are limitations in terms of what information the treasurer can share because of the confidentiality of some of the tax information that they have. When the treasurer collects taxes from unregistered hosts, who by virtue of being unregistered are engaging in illegal activity, what is the protocol? Is that information shared by the treasurer with the Office of Short-Term Rentals, or is it not? If not, this means that one arm of the city is collecting taxes of hosts they know are not in compliance with city law, while the other arm of the city is blindly trying to do enforcement without data. To me, the cooperation between two city agencies is critical. And if there is no cooperation, it would be problematic to really understand how it is that enforcement would happen. There's an urgent need for transparency when it comes to short-term rentals. Our housing crisis continues to ravage our middle and low-income residents. And we have seen that short-term rentals are indeed impacting the availability of housing for San Franciscans. We need strong enforcement, and we need it now. The last item is actually 3 in memoriams that I'm doing in honor of 3 remarkable women who simply have left us too soon. We'd have done this earlier, but due to our break, we couldn't acknowledge the contributions of these women. The first one is Giovanna Luna. Giovanna was a wonderful and inspiring woman, a leader with Ella para Trans Latinas, a leadership and service organization for transgender Latinas in the Mission. She devoted her life to providing services to trans-Latina immigrant women in San Francisco through Ella. As the outreach coordinator for Ella, she was committed to uplifting the trans-Latina community. Her friends, family, and colleagues describe her as a playful person who was extremely empathetic and wanted to help others in the community. Giovanna was admired in the trans-Latina community and beyond, and she will be greatly missed. Just a little bit about Giovanna. She was born in León, Guanajuato in Mexico on May 5th, 1976, and moved to the Bay Area in the early 2000s. She died much too soon at the age of 39. If you'd like to make a contribution, there's a memorial fund for Giovanna. It's at razu.com, and it's under the name Giovanna's Memorial Fund. There's also a fundraiser event for her that Ella is putting together at 9 p.m. Tomorrow at 2940 16th Street. The second in memoriam is for the incredible Rosario Anaya. Rosario Anaya has been a leader not only in the Mission community but all of San Francisco for decades. She was an advocate for so many people, and her death is simply a tremendous loss, not just for the Mission, but for all of San Francisco. And I want to thank Supervisor Yee for co-sponsoring that in memoriam. Rosario Anaya was a trailblazer in every sense of the word. Born on October 7, 1944 in Cochabamba, Bolivia, she moved with her family to Oakland when she was 17. She later graduated from San Francisco University with a bachelor's degree in public administration and master's in counseling and psychology. Within a few years of graduation, she had established herself as a leader for advocacy for the underserved Latino populations and others. Rosario's life work has been, for the last decades, the Mission Language and Vocational School, MLVS, an organization that has helped thousands of immigrants of all backgrounds gain the skills needed to succeed in this country. Becoming the head of MLVS before turning 30, she spent the next 42 years leading this nonprofit organization. Originally a program offering mostly English instruction for Latinos, Rosario expanded MLVS to become a broader vocational school for all immigrants, adding classes for medical, clerical, computer, culinary, business, and pharmacy skills. As a result of that work, MLVS currently graduates about 300 students a year. And you can imagine the thousands of students that have benefited from this in the last few decades. In 1978, Rosario earned the very unique distinction of being the first Latin American woman elected to public office in San Francisco's history. She served on the Board of Education for 12 years and was president of the Board of Education for 8 of those years. On top of everything she did for San Francisco, Rosario was one of the sweetest and nicest people you could meet. She was kind and compassionate. Our thoughts and prayers are with with her family and her friends. And we especially want to give our condolences to the incredible staff at MLVS. Thank you, Rosario, for everything you did for our community. We'll always remember you. We will honor the memory, your memory, by continuing to support the work of MLVS. The final item is an in memoriam to honor the life of a very special person, Rosemary Lambert, who passed away on August 22nd at the age of 59. Rosemary is the mother of Corey Lambert, who is the partner of Bevan Defty, former member of the Board of Supervisors. Rosemary Lambert died after a brave 2.5-year struggle with ALS. Not long after her diagnosis, Corey convinced her to start a blog, Live Simple, Love Like Crazy. That blog allowed her to speak to thousands of people about living with ALS, to speak to her family, and to talk about her life story and advocacy, including the importance of LGBT inclusion and other very important topics. Thousands read her blog, including hundreds of people here in San Francisco. In addition to Mark, her husband of 36 years, Rosemary is survived by her children, Chad Lambert of Dallas, Texas, Kelly Ufnall of Muskegon, Corey Lambert of San Francisco, and Brian Lambert of Muskegon. 3 grandchildren, Cole and Peyton Lambert and Harrison Ufnall. Memorial contributions may be made to the Rosemary Lambert Memorial Fund, care of the Community Foundation for Muskegon County. Thank you. The rest I submit.
Thank you, Supervisor Campos. Seeing no other names on the roster, Madam President, that concludes the introduction of new business.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, can you please read public comment?
At this time, the public may directly address the entire Board of Supervisors for up to 2 minutes on items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Board, to include the minutes, items on the adoption without reference to committee calendar, items 17 through 22. Public comment is not allowed on items which have already been subject to public comment at a Board committee, as is the case with items 1 through 14. Pursuant to the Board's rules, please direct your remarks to the Board as a whole, not to individual supervisors nor to the audience. Speakers using interpretation assistance will be allowed twice the amount of time to testify. If you would like to display a document on the overhead projector, please clearly state such to SFG TV and remove the document when the screen should return to live coverage of the meeting.
Thank you. First speaker, please.
Excuse me. Hi, my name is Paulette Brown, and I'd like to use the overhead. I was just outside a little while ago with a couple other mothers concerning our children and the unsolved homicides. I'm here again concerning my son, let alone other family members and unsolved homicides out there. My son was murdered August 14, 2006, to a semi-automatic gun. 30 rounds of bullets left that gun into my son. To this day, his case is not solved. I'm still seeking justice. Everyone knows, the mayor knows, the former mayor knows who killed my child. These are all the names that my homicide inspector gave me of all the men that shot my child. Thomas Hannibal, Paris Moffett, Andrew Badu, Jason Thomas, Anthony Hunter, Marcus Carter. These people are still walking the street to murder again. Paris Moffett is getting out next year, August, the month he killed my son. All I have left is my son's dead body laying here. This is what I have to remember of my son, let alone all the other unsolved homicides. All of these unsolved homicides. Just think of the mothers. If they were standing here in my shoes, you do not want to stand in my shoes. I've been doing this for 9 years. 9 years, and still no justice for my child, let alone these other unsolved homicides. This is what I have left. And Mayor Gavin Newsom said, he said, I know who killed her son.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Next speaker, please.
Members of the Board of Supervisors, Ray Hartz, Director of San Francisco Open Government, I'd like the chart that I have on the overhead to be projected. And what I'd like everybody to notice is if you're into numbers, there are 24. This is 24 orders of determination finding various representatives of city government in violation of the local open government laws. And as you can see at the bottom of the list now, your board president has joined the ranks. Supervisor Marr, which really kind of surprised me, and pride of place goes to Supervisor Farrell. And I have to wonder, what is it about open government laws you don't understand? Because these violations are not only violations of the Sunshine Ordinance, but they are also violations of either the California Public Records Act or the Brown Act. 24 times I've had to go back to the task force, and that's a success rate of 81%. And I would like to know what it is that you think your office entitles you to ignore the law. And that's what each of these is, a case where a legally constituted body has ruled that you have violated the law. Supervisor Breed didn't even bother to send anybody to the hearing, even though I came before this board 3 times during public comment and mentioned the fact that an IDR was sitting in her office, and they had the arrogance to show up and say, oh, it got lost in the spam folder. What a bunch of horse pucky. You people don't respect the right of the citizens of this city to an open government, and you don't respect the rights of state law, especially as they regard the Constitution of the state of California and the Constitution of the United States.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Never done this before. Do I set?
If you want something to be on the overhead?
Yes.
Yes, you can set it down and ask for the overhead projector.
My name is Joseph Cohen.
Sir, can you speak into the microphone? There's one right next to you. You can move it as well.
Thank you. My name is Joseph Cohen, and I'm the chairman of the committee to build Coit Panoramic Park. Our mission is to create a new city park on Telegraph Hill for this generation and all future generations to enjoy. We will stand for our citizens and visitors' rights to have this park, and will strongly encourage those with the authority that they have to join us in this worthwhile goal. On November 18, 2014, a majority of the Board of Supervisors approved a conditional use to develop 115 Telegraph Hill Boulevard without CEQA environmental review. Your vote has a terminal impact on present and future generations. The approved project obscures our finest views of the financial district, Chinatown, Nob Hill, and North Beach. We ask you to rescind your approval of or declare eminent domain of the purchase of the property at assessed market value. Imagine Coit Panoramic Park, meandering gardens, pathways showing off palms and evergreens, and our city's beautiful flower, the dahlia. All this viewed from a cantilevered terrace, park benches for locals and tourists to sit after a long walk up Filbert Steps. Financing would come from the elevator fees at Coit Tower and a redistribution of funds by City Parks and Rec. There will be a hearing at Superior Court on November 19th at 1:30. Caring plaintiffs will ask for a proper environmental review at 115 Telegraph Hill Boulevard. President Breed and supervisors, please visit 115 Telegraph Hill Boulevard and see the happy visitors in awe of our skyline and glad that they came. The committee to build Coit Panoramic Park will reveal your ill-advised actions unless these are corrected.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. My name is Johnny Fitch. For quite some time now, I have been voicing my concerns about the safety of tenants using the elevator at the Heartland SRO. In my estimation, it should have been replaced years ago. Quite simply, it was out of touch and out of time. Management there elected to leave well enough alone, which has resulted in a senseless tragedy, and one that was entirely avoidable. On August 20th, a blind tenant entered the elevator at the Heartland SRO and plunged 2 stories to his death. On August 27th, Mr. Stephen Newsom was covered in a blanket of roses, just like Kate Steinle. I say that it's high time to change another guards. I'm calling on Mayor Edwin Lee to authorize Mercy Housing to replace Tenderlawn Housing immediately. Seniors, the handicapped, and the safety of occupants are in general is in peril. As for Supervisor Jane Kim, perhaps it's time for you to step down. Forget about moving over. It's time to vacate your post and seek more suitable employment. Quite simply, you have failed to execute your duties and have failed to get the job done. With the aforementioned elevator tragedies, spiraling narcotic sales, and never-ending crime wave in District 6 is in a state of disarray, well beyond District 5, 7, and 10 combined. I'll venture to state that narcotic traffic crime in District 6 would rival the crime rate in the Honduras and Venezuela. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
And Madam President, I'll remind the speakers to keep their comments directed to the full Board of Supervisors, not to individual supervisors.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next speaker, please.
Thank you, President Breed and other members of the cabal. My name is Christopher Dahl, and I live at 6th and Howard, 10 blocks and less than 14 meters from sea level. I rise to comment on sfcrime.gov. Mr. Lee, our less than entirely beloved mayor, entirely ignored my request for clarification of his position on our charter, section 3.100. There are multiple published assertions of Mr. Lee's failure to confine his activities to city business. These are multiple instances of his failure to comply with constitutional restraints on his activities. But you were uninformed. Mr. Lee openly organized and continues to participate in a felonious conspiracy to evade state laws prohibiting private usage of public transit areas, the ongoing Google bus theft of public space. This activity was broadly and publicly reported, and you were uninterested. Mr. Lee openly participates in a felonious conspiracy to evade state and local laws regarding the ongoing, unlicensed direct sale of alcoholic beverages, food, and lodging to the public and the collection of taxes generated by such activities, and you were unavailable. Members, if you don't have the wisdom to hold Mr. Lee accountable to any standard, if you don't have the courage to put the hard questions to him, the public does. You should submit a charter amendment to the voters which would require that the mayor take public comment once a month in these chambers for an hour. This way, at least 20 good citizens of our beloved city and county of San Francisco would be able to get his dishonors full attention for 2 minutes without having to pay cash for it. Today, I forwarded possible language for such to the clerk's office. Thank you, President Breed.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Supervisors, may I bring it to your attention that this is the United States of America. And when you representatives take the oath to represent, you'll better represent. Now, the media has been pointing out about pay to play. Pay to play. And we have empirical data. Empirical data is data that can be verified about a few of you who are participating in that type of corruption. And this must stop. This is the land of the Ohlone. I represent the Ohlone. And there are many indigenous people here who are surprised when they hear that so-called representatives are corrupt. Listen to me. There are some very, very, very corrupt people at City Hall. My friends, the time has come for a change. And we know what is happening in room 200. We really know. We also know about some people who are planning to spend billions of our dollars just because they have a mouth. I just came from the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission. They have set aside millions of dollars for Mountain Tunnel, and you guys know nothing about it. Any millions of dollars spent.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
I'm here because almost a month ago I got a ticket for going through a stop sign. I was behind two cars, and the first car left, but the second car just stood there and refused to move for 6 and 7 minutes. I started blowing my horn at this car, and after a while, that car realized that there was a policeman on the other side of the street, and all of a sudden his lights came on. This is at noon, around 3 o'clock. His lights came on, his alarms came on, everything came on. The car that was in front of me finally got scared and took off for about 100 miles an hour. He was gone. I stood behind him looking at the policeman on the other side of the street with the lights and the alarms and everything. Now I'm asking you, if you were there, would you go through a stop sign if you saw a policeman on the other side of the street with lights? No, you wouldn't do that. You'd be a fool to do that. I went up to it and looked. I could see his wheels turning, getting ready to come after me. He wasn't coming after me because I did anything wrong. He was coming after me because I woke him up. He was sleeping in his car or doing something. I don't know what the hell he was doing. But when I went through, he said to me, he pulled me over and I said, "What do you stop me for? Because I was blowing my horn too long?" He said, "No, because you went through a stop sign without stopping." And I was there for more than 10 minutes, and he says I went through a stop sign without stopping. I felt like getting out of the car, but at this point in my life, I'm a little old. 20 years ago, I would have kicked the crap out of that son of a bitch. And I think what you need now, you need stop signs with lights. The cameras, like they have in South San Francisco, they got cameras all over the place. A cop couldn't possibly give you a ticket or anything else because I...
Thank you very much, sir. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. For 2 years...
Sir, can you please use the microphone? Thank you.
For 2 years, I am coming to this board. 85 years old man on the street. It's only one country, fascist country, it's United States. It's barbarian fascist. And here is sitting 11 barbarian, Jewish, black, Christian, Chinese. Nobody in the world has right to evict a person without any reason, to evict a person 85 years on the street, to die on the street like a dog, like animals. What country is this, my God? I came from 40 years ago from Russia. If I would knew what you are lying about the freedom, again, 11 here and one Chinese fascist abroad across the hall, and one is sitting big black in White House. What, you all have parents and grandparents. How could you, of course it's not your, I am sleeping on the street. I am homeless for 2 years. Not your parents, not your grandparents, not this Chinese fascist, a thief. My God, what can I do? I am coming to, do you want me to ask Sinai to bring coffin here on the, when, after maybe 1 more year or some short time? Let's make me maybe a good idea to bring coffin to.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Well, I'd like to put this up. You said thank you very much. If you mean it, I want everybody here and in the audience to give that gentleman that preceded me $2, okay, which is nothing. That's nothing. But anyway, I'm torn between two things. I'd like to talk about Kim Davis. Jesus said, blessed are those that are persecuted for righteousness' sake. I was glad to hear Ted Cruz visited her in prison today. And she loved the homosexuals enough, and she loved God enough to obey him and glorify him. And she is in prison in day number 7. But I also feel led to talk about this referendum on Senate Bill 277. I have the official one. If anyone here would like to sign it, can I see a show of hands?
Madam President, I have paused the speaker's time. Sir, there is no electioneering in the chamber.
There's no what?
Electioneering in the chamber, or on city property for that matter.
Okay, forget I ever said that. I was not aware of that. But Senate Bill 277 is a dreadful thing that our Jesuit governor signed into law, and it gives forced vaccinations to kids that go to public school. Dr. Andrew Wakefield, who was interviewed by the great Alex Jones, who rocks on talk shows, he's better than Rush Limbaugh or any of them, and I listen to all of them, and that's an exaggeration, but he actually is. Dr. Andrew Wakefield has not been debunked. He's always been a good doctor, and he's established a clear link between autism and thimerosal. And so I'd like you all to make some noise about this. It's a totally unconstitutional thing. But in regards to Kim, who's in prison, you see, Jesus said, if you love me, keep my commandments. We don't hate homosexuals, but we speak the truth, not only to them, but to everybody. And, God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah by fire because of this particular sin. It is true that there were other sins. In Ezekiel, we learned that there were other sins besides being a homosexual that caused them to be killed. But Jesus said that it would be more tolerable for Sodom and Gomorrah on Judgment Day.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Excuse me. Thank you, Madam President. Arnold Townsend, supervisors. I am here today because I know many of you are aware of what happened to us at Frederick Douglass Haynes Apartments a month ago, where I'm trying to think of a nice word for an illegal board of directors, along with unscrupulous real estate folk, tried to sell 104 family units out from under us. We have even 3 and 4 bedroom homes in our complex, which you know are hard to find in San Francisco. 104 families came within a week of being put on the street. A secret sale where only 4 developers were invited to an auction that was all going to occur in 1 week. Fortunately, through one of the developers who happened to be a friend of mine, we got wind of it, and through the support of members of this board and others in the city and the residents, we were able to fight it off. Would all those residents who are here with me or that support our efforts in solidarity, would you just stand real quick? Real quick. We wanted to come down and let you know how serious this thing is. We have, thank you, we have temporarily fought it off, but it is not over. And what I came today to tell you is we will be handing to you, this is just a draft of a resolution that we're going to be asking you all to adopt that will codify these as affordable units forever and put money towards maintaining these as affordable units. These were built under redevelopment. Redevelopment was charged with building and maintaining them as affordable, but redevelopment is no longer there, and we think that same requirement goes to the successor agency, and we need you all to support us. So you will be getting the final draft very soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Madam President, before the next speaker begins, I'll just remind the members in the public gallery that there is no applause allowed either for or against any speakers in the chamber.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next speaker, please.
Madam President and supervisors, my name is Donald Griggs, Vice President, the Board of Directors, Midtown Park Apartments. I've asked the members that are with me from Midtown to stand up. First, we are here in solidarity with the previous speaker, and we're also here seeking your support in our struggles with the Mayor's Office on Housing. Constituents from District 5, we want to know if you are for our efforts. We feel that we have a fair and credible position in our struggles with the Mayor's Office on Housing, and we're seeking your support to reinforce the Board of Supervisors Resolution 325-07, and also the Board of Supervisors' 5 principles. One of them is ownership, is what we're seeking, and we're asking for your support. And let the record state that Midtown Park Apartments have never been subsidized housing. On that note, we want to thank you in advance for your support and your cooperation.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to put something on the thing here.
Ace, can you speak into the microphone,
I'm
please?
sorry. Thank you, Supervisor. Let me just, I won't need nothing. Let me just say one thing. This is my first time back since y'all had a recess. Yours truly, Ace on the case, is returning to City Hall, y'all, in the press room. I'm going to give the news the way it should be. Both sides of the story and give my opinion. But right now, ladies and gentlemen, this city, in my opinion, is the most corrupt city in San Francisco. Let me also say at the beginning, this is the most racist city in the in the community. But we almost damn near the richest as far as budget. Now, Ed Lee, he knows me. You know what? We worked together when he was with the HRC, and it's no mystery. If you ask the now Mayor Ed Lee about me, he'll probably say, because he say a lot of jokes, Ace is just working on some damn conspiracy. Well, yes, I am. In his town, the black population is going down. This budget, $9.8 billion. Now, yours truly, Ace Washington, along with Supervisor Bree and other people you may not know, was part of a committee that put together by the then mayor, Gavin Newsom. And I was the only Negro, the only printer, the only person that's involved with the press to have the history, because it ain't no mystery. Now, the issue is I'm going to be coming up here once a month, maybe doing my show, reporting on all the supervisors. I'm going to be in the press room, and I'm going to be following every issue that has something to do with the African-American black Negro, because my name is Ace. Ha! And I'm on the case. So I'm not going to sing today, but I want y'all to know you can't keep me away.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Hello. Hopefully this is redundant or, yeah, maybe I'm behind the times. But I was hoping that you guys can consider that the Airbnb taxation, it's a taxation on what used to be known as illicit profit. So it's kind of an end around landlords. So they say you can't cheat an honest man. So if the city feels like it's being cheated out of some of the tax revenue, what they're doing isn't exactly correct either. And then as far as the San Francisco police officers are concerned, if there isn't already some kind of psychometric examination or a polymetric psychological exam for the officers, there probably should be one, because then it could uncover unconscious biases. We should also have a competency exam for our judges and a Brady affidavit signed by prosecutors, since there's apparently a lot of Brady violations. And yeah, if they could personally sign some kind of affidavit, that would be great. As far as you guys have been talking about a lot of groups that help youth, I don't know if you have brought back the ROTC to high school level, but that would be great. A lot of people, from what I understand, a lot of students missed it. They were upset when the program ended. Also, if you could fast-track deportations of foreign nationals who are affiliated with foreign identified terrorist group, that would be great. There was some legislation passed in El Salvador recently that you guys may or may not be aware of. Also, if you could recriminalize gang association, that would give the police a very useful tool where they could use their own discretion to arrest any gang members affiliating with one another, associating with one another for, say, 48 hours or so. Also, if you could get the San Francisco Field Division of the AAF.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. My name is Angela Brown, and I'm the chair of the Social Action Committee of San Francisco Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. We are a public service organization, and I'm here to speak on the issue of what's happening with many of our senior homes. The most immediate one is the Frederick Haynes homes, but other senior homes in the Western Addition area and other areas where it's predominantly African American are being targeted by developers who are going to come in and renovate the properties, bring what they consider up to market value, which will, of course, displace all of the current residents. I would plead with you to do whatever you can within your power to stop what appears to be the systematic removal of African Americans from the city and county of San Francisco. With the out-migration report, it indicated that one of the reasons that there was such an exodus of African Americans from San Francisco is the housing issue. And this is a prime example of why that is happening, why there are so many African Americans that are leaving San Francisco. It is because housing has become totally unaffordable, and those that have been here for decades who have given their blood, sweat, and tears to this city in taxes and are now seniors are being moved out. So please do whatever you can to stop this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Supervisor Reed and the other supervisors, my name is Betty Evans.
I have lived in the community all my life, and I'm very disturbed, excuse me, about the affordable housing that developers piggybacking on the young lady and Reverend Townsend, what they're trying to do to our community. It needs to stop, and it needs to stop now. I'm concerned about the Fillmore corridor when all of the business that are being opened up, they're not business persons that look like me. I don't want the other Oriental kinds of food. I don't want the other kind of Russian food. I'm being real. I can't go to your neighborhood and put up a business because you won't give me the monies. As being a black person, I can't get a grant to put up a building, but everybody else and their playmate that's non-black can get it. And I'm really upset about the corridor of Fillmore. I am sick and tired of it. We need to stop it. We vote you guys in to represent us. And you don't represent us in the way that we think that we should be represented. Enough is enough. We all want to live. We all want to enjoy. But one race of people can't be put aside for another race of people. And I've lived in the Western Addition all my life. And I've seen what has happened. As I'm being a young woman, what is going on? Why should these other persons of other nationalities come in our neighborhood, put up their business, and then you expect us to patronize them? You may bring them in our neighborhood, but we don't have to patronize these persons. So please, give us a chance as being black, African American, Negroes, colored, whatever you want to say, but don't bring them in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, President Breed and members of the Board of Supervisors. I'm here to ask you to call a hearing regarding the illegal land use of surplus city property on Yerba Buena Island and Treasure Island. These 70 acres of Yerba Buena Island and 220 acres of TI became surplus city property on May 29, 2015. The San Francisco Redevelopment Agency had a clear and transparent transition through the successor agency, the San Francisco Office of Community Investment and Infrastructure, whereas the Treasure Island Development Authority did not. Its successor agency was the City and County of San Francisco, which made a quick transfer because it did not have use of any tax monies, and this process was non-transparent. The DDA signed in 2011 with TICD was rejected by the state as not shovel-ready or entitled to continue, yet the city is proceeding with this DDA as though it is valid or protected. Giving this public land to Lennar for pennies on the dollar to build 95% luxury housing is not only a violation of the law, but also a failure in the moral imperative to preserve and provide affordable housing in San Francisco. The 15 affordable rental units they plan are not permanent, but rather temporary and subject to the unknown limitations of whatever covenants are established. Based upon past agreements, the covenants will likely favor the developer, and in a few years, residents will face the same dilemma as the South Beach Marina residents. I ask you, I implore you to please call a hearing on this illegal surplus land use and to stop the luxury development and displacement of affordable housing renters on both these islands. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
San Francisco, I'm Michael Lyons. San Francisco Gray Panthers are incredibly opposed to this giveaway of public land on Treasure Island and Yerba Buena Island. This really, it reminds me nothing more of what's happening than the corporate oligarchs in Russia who just gave away everything that people had worked for in the infrastructure that people had worked for. That land on Yerba Buena and Treasure Island belongs to the city. It is not up to the mayor or his cronies to give it away to each other or to take it. We need that land to be reserved for 100% affordable housing in accordance with the law.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Kay Walker, and I'm a Gray Panther. Both Michael and I are in support. Our whole organization is in support of this hearing that was requested by Betty Amaki, who is one of the leaders of the Yerba Buena Island tenants who are being evicted. I've never seen in San Francisco that an entire island can be evicted. And then they don't have return rights. They don't, because everything is going to be condoized and built in terms of unaffordable housing. The costs now for most of the tenants are $1,900 to $2,200 per household. When these apartments are sold, of course, that will be much higher in terms of the mortgage, and there's only 3% affordable housing going in. The surplus land is another issue. I've been looking online in terms of city ordinances and state ordinances, and the state ordinance reads for surplus land, and that's 8220, state surplus property. Any conveyances of surplus property under this chapter would be subject to and would first need to comply with applicable state law, including the state surplus property statute. And that has to do with the fact that it has to be affordable. The first refusal rights have to be affordable, and that is not happening at all. It will be unaffordable. I have so many materials here. I don't understand why in the marina there might be more interest. There's the 100 people have been evicted here, sent to Treasure Island, which is toxic. That has never been cleared up. We've got articles all over the newspaper.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, I'm Denise Diana, and I'm also with Great Panthers, and I'm very concerned about this issue, and I agree with the former speakers that we really need to do something very quickly because we're dealing with human lives, and we don't want them to be homeless. And so, anyway, that's my testimony. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Tom Gilberti, 2 Townsend, South Beach Marina Apartments. Welcome back. San Francisco is sleeping with its windows open again. I wonder if it's cool air to the noise issue. Noise is up there again, guys. We need to take care of it. It's an issue whose time has come. I've said, I've asked before for a 3rd minute for the public comment. If you've come here twice and on the 3rd time, I was wondering if we could get a reaction to that. I want to say again that I am a pause in a new direction, and that includes a new mayor. Instead of jobs and growth and unaffordable housing, how about a healthy, sustainable equilibrium that rises the entire city? Before the vacation, I asked the mayor to join Supervisor Farrow's team to put $1 and every political dollar in San Francisco's election campaign with a name to it. Since then, we've got in the airwaves pay to play, better than the mafia, and no one is running against him. So the entire Democratic Party is in line. And yet, there's 84,083 people in this city that would be a better mayor than this present mayor. This is an army. And how am I calculating that? These are the people that voted against 8 Washington. And we're still getting these land deals from the mayor's office. It's time for a change. There's an army waiting for a name, and we can write it in. Maybe the pen can be more powerful than the dollar. Housing. I've got 11 seconds. I've got a 5-point housing plan. I would love a 3rd minute. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is David Brankus. I'm an artist living in the Dubois Triangle. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Yerba Buena residents. I hope you will consider to have a hearing on this. Other people have spoken more at length about the reasons for that, but for me, the issue is affordable housing. There's a lot of talk about affordable housing. The people who are living there have affordable housing. Instead, they're going to build these luxury condos. Maybe the mayor is going to have so-called affordable units in some of the buildings that are being put up and down the main streets of our city. They're not affordable for most of us. Everybody knows that. It's a laugh. So why get rid of the affordable housing you already have in order to give a giveaway to some private corporation, a no-bid contract to them? I think this needs to be investigated. Please do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, Denise Louie, San Francisco native, voter, and taxpayer. I wanted to bring to your attention there's a really big problem that requires some attention. It's the stressed and dying trees on unirrigated city property. And if you want an example, just go along O'Shaughnessy Boulevard and look over into Glen Canyon. You'll see stands of dying eucalyptus trees. They represent a hazard, not just because they can fall down on us, but also they can fuel a firestorm. Remember 1991, the Oakland Hills. This is not much different. This is the 4th consecutive year of drought. These trees normally take up a lot of water, but they're highly stressed and shown to be dying. I hope we can continue this conversation via email. I will send you a link to Jake Sigg's article on the front page of Western Observer. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
My name is Nancy McNally. I'm representing my children, 4th generation San Franciscans, which, oh, I'm sorry. Is this okay? My name is Nancy McNally. I'm representing my children, 4th generation San Franciscans, so that they'll have a record of what I have to say. I'm also the founder of the AIDS Memorial Grove, and I've been a park activist since 1969, People's Park, Berkeley. There's very few people like myself or Kay or the other people here anymore, and it's because of the massive eviction that's been going on for many, many, many years. I'm here to say, and I want to scare all of you, people are dying from stress. It's real simple. Your housing makes a difference. I am speaking for myself, suffering the stress. I don't own a house. I was evicted 20 years ago in a no-fault eviction. And you can stare at your computers and yawn and do all you want, but the next time you hear about somebody dying in San Francisco because of this housing crisis, I've been here to talk to you, so many other people. Whether you listen or not, I don't know. It doesn't seem like you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
My name is Jackie Barshak, and I'm with the Plaza 16 Coalition. I'm here to talk about Yerba Buena Island. So why should the city, with city-owned property, be developed as 95% luxury housing? Half the units that'll be bought up by people who won't even live in them. It'll be a millionaire's island. And most of the people on Yerba Buena Island, these residents won't move to Treasure Island because of the health hazards. You're forcing them out and forcing them to relocate to Treasure Island amidst contamination cleanup. So the choice you're giving them is exposure to toxic chemicals or leave San Francisco forever. So my other question is, why did the city of San Francisco award a no-bid contract to Lennar? So this is surplus land theft, as you've heard before. And this is Mayor Lee's fantasy island. And Supervisor Jane Kim, you have the power to care about Yerba Buena Island and stop this land theft. Do it.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Lisa Vincenti. I'm working with Cultural Action Network. I've been a member of San Francisco since 1997 and have been in love with this city since I was 14. And I'm really tired of coming here for the working class people. Why is there a war on the working class homes? And why can't we have more than one kind of economic model? Why are we monocropping this diverse platform? We love this place because of all the wonderful ways that people live. I finally had a Saturday this weekend that reminded me of why this city is wonderful, and it involved being in buildings of different kinds of economic plentitude, and it's too much. It's too much. I am barely making a living right now because I'm coming down here so much. I'm really tired of it, but y'all have power to stop being monoculture. Stop monocropping our city, please.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who'd like to speak at this time? Please come forward.
I don't know if it's worth the time or not, but it's true that the stock market, the way that they evaluate the value of the petroleum companies is by the reserves. That's why they have the valuation that they get. And I've always, for years, I found it's bizarre, it's absurd, because, I mean, we'd be committing suicide to take that much petroleum out of the ground at any one time. So I appreciate it. I think my comments are a part of a continuum of what the other speakers are saying, because if you look at the kind of housing that's getting built, a couple of us got together to oppose a market rate housing development in the Tenderloin. That's now it's in play now, apparently, of all things. I don't know who's going to rent a $3,000 a month studio in the Tenderloin, but apparently there are people with no parking, but apparently there are people that they believe that's going to happen. So, our neighborhood is also under attack. And then going back to the petroleum issue, we don't have enough infrastructure, we don't have enough renewable energy for the development that we already have in this city or the country. So, I don't know, I'm perplexed.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, Peter Papadopoulos, Cultural Action Network. I just really have that basic question in summary of these folks. If the Yerba Buena Island deal isn't so poor, then I don't really see what the harm of an investigation of it is. I mean, it either is what it sounds like it is to the community, or it's something different. And if there was an investigation, then hopefully, we're going to make clear a lot of things that aren't currently known clearly to your public here. So I would just strongly encourage an investigation and a very public, transparent discussion of the whole situation, which really doesn't seem like it's happened yet. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that like to provide public comment at this time? Seeing none, public comment, please come forward.
Good day, Supervisors. My name is Sandra Manning. I'm a resident of San Francisco, a lifetime resident. And my concern is what is to be done with the property surrounding the former site of Candlestick Stadium. I realize that Candlestick Stadium was sitting on city property. Now, the surrounding area is state property, because I used to work for the state 25-something years ago. So ever since Candlestick was bulldozed, they're talking about they're building this brand new city or neighborhood, what have you. But that land surrounding Candlestick Stadium is state surplus property. I'm wondering what is to become of that. So I await your answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who'd like to provide public comment at this time? Seeing none, public comment is now closed. Madam Clerk, can you please read the without reference to committee items?
Items 17 through 22 are being considered for immediate adoption without committee reference. A single roll call vote may enact these items. A member may object, sever an item, and have it considered separately.
Does anyone want to sever any of the items? Seeing no names on the roster, Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
On items 17 through 22, Supervisor Christensen.
Aye.
Christensen, aye. Supervisor Cohen. Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell. Farrell, aye. Supervisor Kim.
Aye.
Kim, aye. Supervisor Marr.
Aye.
Marr, aye. Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Wiener.
Aye.
Wiener, aye. Supervisor Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Avalos. Avalos, aye. Supervisor Breed.
Aye.
Breed, aye. Supervisor Campos.
Aye.
Campos, aye. There are 11 ayes.
Okay, those items are approved unanimously. Madam Clerk, can you please read the in memoriams?
Today's meeting will be adjourned in memory of the following beloved individuals on behalf of Supervisor Campos. For the late Miss Giovanna Luna, Mrs. Rosemary Lambert, and Mrs. Rosario Anaya.
Colleagues, this brings us to the end of our agenda. Madam Clerk, is there any further business before us?
Madam President, that concludes our business for today.
Okay, we are adjourned.
SF Gov TV.